Hey guys, Ryan here at Signature Edits, and inside of this video we're going to do a review of the Falcon RX-18 TDX, wait for it, bicolor roll flex LED waterproof IPX8 flex panel light with honeycomb grid softbox. So it sounds like a mouthful, but it's an amazing light. We're going to take a look at some of the features, and particularly if you're looking at actually upgrading your lighting setup, whether you want to set up a studio with some lights that are continuous, or you're looking at strobes, or just kind of sorting through all the different options out there. We're going to talk about that, how this light stacks up, and whether I recommend it for people who are just getting into video or photography lighting. You ready? Let's do it. All right, so first things first, right now you're actually seeing the Falcon RX-18 TDX2 in action. It's set up about a foot away from my face, and I'm using it to light this video. So if you're wondering about the quality of the light, I'll show you some samples later, but this entire video was shot with this light. Makes sense so far? So this one is the old version, so it's the RX-18 Mark I, and it was an amazing light for me. I purchased it as my very first kind of semi-pro expensive light when I started this channel, because I needed something. I was sick of the DIY solutions, and honestly, if you try and spend as little as possible, you are going to struggle. You're not going to get the kind of results that you can get from just spending a little extra money and getting a decent light like this. Now, LED panel lights, you can see, are super thin, and they're made up of rows of LED strips. So we've got hundreds of little LED, not bulbs, but diodes on here that are lighting up and creating a really large, soft source of light. So using this light is a lot like having a window to go. You can take it wherever you want, set it up, and because it's so thin, you could literally tape it to the wall if you don't have any room in your studio or your office, wherever you're using it. And it's super light, super flexible, so you can kind of put this light in any manner of places. Now, the light itself is 100 watts, and the beauty of this particular one is it's bicolor. So if I take this controller that I've got hidden here, this is the controller that comes with the light, and it allows you to switch the Kelvin balance, like so. So you can go from 3000 Kelvin all the way up to 5600 Kelvin. I have it at 5350 because I actually find having it a little bit warmer makes my skin slightly more orange, which isn't always a good thing. You don't want to take it too far, but it adds a little bit of a healthy tone. So here is full daylight, and here is 53 or 50. So it just warms up my skin a little bit. And having the ability to actually switch between tungsten and daylight has been an amazing blessing so far. Using this light has blown my mind and changed my world, because the original version of the light that I bought the daylight only version because I figured, you know what, I like daylight, tungsten is ugly, I'm just going to go with daylight. But the problem is, when you only have a light that does daylight, as soon as you enter a situation with tungsten lighting that you can't control or need to have on, you're kind of hooped. Everything looks super orange in the background, or you have to make yourself look super blue. It just doesn't work. And so in my old studio space, when I had natural light during the day, I could shoot in the middle of the day and that was fine. But if I wanted to shoot at night, I just couldn't, because all of the lights in my house were tungsten, so it would look really strange. Likewise, at sunset or sunrise, if you're trying to use a light that is only daylight balanced, things are going to be too cold and too blue, and you can't match it to that changing lighting condition. So that's one of the huge advantages of this kind of light, having the ability to change. I would highly recommend, if you're shopping for an LED light, make sure it has both daylight and tungsten, and the ability to actually switch between the two and kind of calibrate the lighting to your scene. That's huge. Okay, now one little thin that I should mention is Falcon actually sent me this version of the light. Should have mentioned that earlier, but I paid for the first version, I did a review of it, and 2 years later now they reached out to me and said, hey, we just came out with the second version of this light, would you like to try it? So they're not paying me for this review, but they did send me the light for free, so gotta get that out of the way. Okay, back to our actual review and kind of walking you through what LED panels are all about. We have the ability to switch the Kelvin, we can switch the brightness, and another beauty of these amazing LED panels is they're getting brighter and brighter and more powerful. This light right now that's on me is set to 12% power. So you can imagine how bright the thing actually goes if 12% is enough for me to be perfectly lit in this particular space, which means that you can actually use this light outside. So if you're a portrait photographer or you're a videographer and you just want to take your light outside and light your subjects, and it's a bright day, you could actually do it. You couldn't do it with a full-length shot. It probably wouldn't be bright enough to do like a wide or anything like that, but you'd have no problem doing a similar framing to this shot in the middle of the day if you put this light at 100%. When talking about shooting outside, it actually has a V-mount battery setup. So you can't see it right now because I've got a power adapter here, but there's a little hook here that you can actually hook in a V-mount battery and take this light with you wherever you want. You don't even need to have power anymore. So that's really cool if you're the kind of person who is interested in shooting outdoors. It's just handy to have. Another cool feature of the light, it's waterproof, which is really cool. So it's rated as IPX8, which means that it's waterproof at least 2 meters, so you can go down 2 meters with this light for up to 30 minutes or something like that. So long story short, if you want to take a light with you in the shower, you can. Or more practically, if you're going to be taking this light outside and it looks like it's overcast, you don't have to worry about it getting rained on or getting a little wet. I don't know about the controller, if that's also waterproof. You'd probably want to cover this with a bag, but the point is you can use this light and not worry about it, breaking because it gets a little bit of moisture on it. So that's very cool. Lastly, as far as features for this specific light go, it has a function built in. So you've got 9 scenes. So you've got, you can see here, lightning, double lightning, old TV, candle, double flash, strobe, some kind of other thing, and this fadey thing. So I don't know how handy all of those are, but having the ability to actually do that kind of special effect just makes this light a little bit more open as far as the creative possibilities go. So I could actually take this light, put it in that doorway in behind me, and set it to lightning mode, and it would look like it was stormy outside. So if you're a filmmaker, maybe that's helpful for you. I don't know. I probably won't ever be using it for that, but it has it in there. Another last awesome feature about this controller is it does have DMX inputs in it and a wireless receiver. So DMX lets you actually hook this light up to a lighting board. So if you're using it in a theater or some kind of a performing space where you have lots of lights going on, you can actually use this light just to illuminate your stage or illuminate a broad scene. It's very handy in terms of having that DMX capability. And then you can also select a remote, hook it up to here, you buy that separately, and you can control this light from afar, change the color balance and change the power, all of that good stuff. So that is this light in a nutshell, all the features. It comes with a softbox and it comes with a kind of light dome, which is what I'm using right now, as well as a honeycomb grid, which is, do I have one around? No, I don't. But basically it's a whole bunch of series of, well, it looks kind of like a honeycomb. It's interlocking panels that you put on top of the light and makes it a little bit more directional. And the reason for that is because this particular light, because you've got these LEDs with a dispersion pattern. I don't really know what that, if that's the technical term, but the LEDs will send light almost 180 degrees off this panel. It's very broad in terms of the coverage, which is awesome because you can illuminate an entire room and it's super soft and flattering. But sometimes you want to be a little bit more focused and not illuminate everything. You want to just focus in, and that's what the honeycomb filter kind of helps with. Okay, so all that out of the way, let's talk about alternatives and what you might be looking for if you're getting into your first studio lighting setup. So let's talk alternatives. Probably the most popular one out there on the YouTube right now that all the YouTubers are using is the Aperture 120D. So that light is an LED Cob light, whereas this is an LED panel light. What's the difference? Well, LED Cob lights, instead of having hundreds of different LEDs that make a big panel, are actually made up of just a couple really, really big, really bright ones, kind of like a spotlight for LEDs. And so they go in the very center. It's a Cob light like this, let's say. And then you have your diffusion that you put it through. So you have the light and it goes through a big light domes that you can buy. And so the advantage of that kind of a light, and the reason so many YouTubers are using it in their space, and so many photographers as well, is that the light is very, very flattering and very beautiful. The color is also super accurate, and so they're great lights. But there are a couple pros and a couple cons to that versus an LED panel. The pro is your light tends to be a little bit more flattering, just looks a little bit nicer overall, and you have some more flexibility in terms of what the light does. So Cob lights, or at least the light dome, not the light dome, the Aperture 120D has the ability to put different filters on the light itself. So it's got a Bowen's mount, which is a type of lighting mount that you can buy different adapters for to make the light spread out more, make it more focused, cast shadows on top of things, put scrims in front of the light, all that good stuff. So you can do a little bit more in terms of special effects and controlling the way the light comes out. Whereas an LED panel light is kind of just soft light. You can't manipulate hundreds of LEDs at a time so much. So you can use the honeycomb filter, you can put a softbox on it, but you can't really turn it into a spotlight. That's just not going to happen with this kind of light. It's really meant for a nice, soft, beautiful key light or a stage light to illuminate a large scene. So that's kind of the differences between the two. One of the big advantages of the LED panel light is that it's way brighter. So this light that I'm using right now, I did some tests, and it turned out it's about 30% brighter than version 1 of the same light. Now, version 1 was already tested and found to be significantly brighter than the Aperture 120D. So that's one cool thing about these lights. They are super bright, and if you're looking for the brightest possible light to use outdoors, whatever, this light, as far as constant light goes, is going to be hard to beat. Now, another thing that LED panels tend to have an advantage in is that this one is daylight or tungsten. You can switch between the two or do any range in between, whereas the Aperture 120D is just daylight. That's it. So you can control the power level, but you can't actually change the temperature. So as we talked about earlier, when you actually have a scene that kind of needs to be adjusted or tweaked a little bit, you're going to have a hard time doing that with the Aperture 120D. You kind of get daylight and that's it. So you have to work around that limitation. Okay, so that's one possible alternative that you could buy. Let's talk price. This particular light is $429 right now on Amazon, whereas the other one, the Aperture 120D, I think is about $750. You can also buy the light dome, which doesn't come with the Aperture 120D. You have to buy the light dome separately, which is this big diffusion box, and it's huge, by the way. So that's another advantage, disadvantage of the Aperture 120D, is that the light that comes off of this light is very soft, very beautiful, but it also takes up a lot more room to have that thing set up. Whereas this guy, as you saw, if you're in a small studio, you can get pretty soft light even without any diffusion on it, because there's actually diffusion on top of the panel to begin with. Okay, so as I was saying, it's about $750 plus $200 for the light dome to put on top of the Aperture 120D. Whereas this guy, $429, you receive all the accessories with it, and you're ready to go. Okay, so we've talked about kind of the differences between those two lights. Let's talk about the differences between this kind of a light and a strobe. The advantage of a strobe, which is just a flash, is that you have much better battery life. So since the flash is only on for a second, typically you can get it a lot brighter, so there's a lot more power involved, and you also have better battery life. You can fire it more times because it's not on constantly. This kind of a light, if you hook it up to a battery and you're somewhere mobile that you need to do it battery powered, you're going to run out of battery a lot faster because it's constant. Whereas the flash, you have more battery and more power. However, at the same time, that comes with its own set of trade-offs. Having a constant light, trust me, for photography is amazing because you don't have to fiddle with your camera settings. Unlike with a flash where you're constantly taking a shot, checking, changing, taking a shot, you don't have to do that with this. You just turn it on. Once it looks good, you adjust your camera settings and you're done. It's very easy. Whereas with a flash, I find, at least for me, I'm always tinkering and always looking and always changing and adjusting as I'm moving around. Now this, you're going to have to change and adjust a little bit too, but it's just a lot faster. You can also use this with video and with photo, so if you're the kind of person who wants to be able to do both, obviously this makes a lot more sense. Again, looking at price, you can get similar flash units for about the same amount. It just depends what kind of price range you're looking in, right? Because you can easily get carried away and spend $4,000 on a ProPhoto B10 Plus flash kit, but most of us aren't going to need that. Now, I should also mention, going back to our Aperture 120D, there is a knockoff version on Amazon. It's called the Pixel 80 Watt Continuous Output Lighting, and it's pretty much exactly the same as the Aperture 120D, just it's $269 instead of $700 and something. Plus, you can buy a newer softbox for this, and it'll be pretty much the same thing. So if you're looking at that style of light, you want the most flattering light possible, go with something like that. If you, on the other hand, want kind of the best budget, and I think overall just the most features kind of light, go with something like this, the LED panel. Let's talk really quickly about the other alternative, which is more of a DIY setup, or just those LED bulbs that you can buy with the softbox for about $60. Okay, DIY, getting work lights, putting gels in front of them, trying to build your own softboxes out of pillowcases, etc. You can do that, and you'll get decent results. If you really fiddle and you work for a long time, you can do it. It can absolutely work for you. If you look up, I think Daniel Schiffer has a cake pan light that he built for about $60, and it is great quality, and the light actually winds up looking pretty good. However, having gone that same route myself, I'll tell you, you're going to spend a lot more time, and you're going to be fiddling a lot more, and every time you want to move that light around, it's janky, and it doesn't really want to work properly, and it comes with its set of trade-offs too. So if you can afford, and you want to do this professionally, you can afford to invest in a light like this, especially for a key light, I would recommend spending a little bit more money, not trying the DIY options, and not trying the cheapest thing you can find. Because the cheap lights have poor CRI. And CRI is just a measurement of, honestly, how accurate color is from the light. So every light has a CRI index. 100 would be perfect light. It gives off balanced light from all the different spectrums, red, green, blue, etc. Whereas poor CRI, if you had a light with only 50 CRI, that light would be all over the place. It might have really inaccurate coloring, and so your image is not going to look as good. These were tested by Caleb Pike, the version 1, I believe, and he found they had a CRI of between 96 and 98, which is a very, very high, very accurate color rating. The same goes with more expensive lights, like the Aperture 120D, of course, has even better coloring than this light. So you want to spend a little bit of extra money just so that the actual quality of the light is better. If you buy the cheaper options like the $60 Softbox, it's going to work for you, and the light can actually be pretty good, but you're going to wind up with slightly less accurate color, so that's another trade-off too. So that's kind of the difference between DIY, flash, LED panels, and more of the softbox style Aperture 120D style Cob lights. And lastly, just in case any of you are actually wondering how the version 2 Falcon Eyes stacks up against the version 1 side by side, here's a quick test to show you the comparison of the quality of the light. This is the old Falcon Eyes, this is the light quality. Notice the light fall off in the background, the shadows on my face, the color of the light, everything like that. And now we will switch. And here is the new Falcon Eyes. So we're set up exact same situation. We've got the light exactly right here, and same stand, same angle, same everything, just a different light. Here's the new Falcon Eyes, and this is the old Falcon Eyes. Here's the new Falcon Eyes, and this is the old Falcon Eyes. So as you can see, there's actually a pretty massive difference between version 1 and version 2 of this light. Version 2, my skin tone just feels a lot better. Version 1, as I look at my older videos, my skin is consistently this kind of pinkish, reddish, magenta tone that I couldn't really get rid of. Now, part of that might just be my progression as a filmmaker and my eyes improving. I've spent a lot of time trying to get this light looking good, but even in this same room, same setup, same situation, these lights look massively different when you zoom in on my skin tone and compare them side by side. Alright, so in summary, I absolutely love this light. When Falcon Eyes reached out to me, sent me this light, I honestly figured I'd find it meh, right? Because I already had version 1 and I was super happy with it, and how much could you really improve on a great product? Well, it turns out you can improve a lot, and I had no idea. I had no idea how helpful it was to be able to switch between tungsten and daylight and the ability to kind of fine-tune your lighting. That is amazing and definitely a must. If you're looking at buying lighting, I would say make sure you have that. Above almost all else, make sure you have that, and that is nice, soft light. And how do you get soft light? With a larger light source or through a lot of diffusion. So the larger the light source, generally, the softer it's going to be. The other reason I have this light only a foot from my face is because the source relative to me is going to be larger, and so I'm going to get softer, more flattering light. Plus, I don't have to use as much power, so all of a sudden I can be illuminated, but my background is still kind of dark, creates more contrast. Now, let's talk really quick about background lights. Just because we're already talking about lighting, what you should invest in and what you shouldn't, I would say spend extra money on your key light, because that's the light that's illuminating you, and you want your skin or the subject's skin that you're filming or taking a photo of to look good and accurate. Whereas with background lights, colors like this, it doesn't really matter if that red is true red, or that green is true green, or if that blue is true blue, because who cares? It's just color. As long as it looks good, that's okay. It doesn't have to be super accurate. So with background lighting, this is literally just a $15 Amazon light strip that I set up. And then on the other end, in behind this table, I literally took the rest of the lights, because my desk is like 4 feet long. I took the other 20 feet of LEDs and I stuck them into a metal bowl, and that metal bowl is reflecting onto the wall. So you don't have to spend a lot of money to get good background lights, but I would recommend spending more on this kind of light. Now, in summary, when it comes to the Falcon Eyes RX-18 TDX, whatever the name is, I would highly recommend this light. If you're in that kind of budget range and you're kind of weighing the options between the Aperture or the Falcon Eyes, personally, I would go with this style of light. The LED panel is very handy. You've got a lot of features. It's super light, takes up very little space, which for most of us in our studio space, like this is half studio, half bedroom, I don't have room for a huge softbox and a huge light. So having that compact, smaller light, while having maybe a little bit less softness or a little bit less quality, I don't know, it looks pretty good to me. But I'm willing to make that trade-off for the sake of the extra space and the portability and all the different features. So 2 thumbs up for this light. Definitely check it out. If I missed something you're wondering, please leave a note in the comments below or a question. I'll make sure to get back to you. And if this video was helpful, do me a favor, hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe for great content and hit that bell if you want more resources and free stuff. Okay? I will see you in the next video. Peace out.